especially in matters of the heart. You can't just wake up and force a woman into my life like this, Caro barked, pacing the living room. Marriage isn't a business transaction. Madame Tonier remained seated, her expression firm but tired. We didn't raise you to be blind to decency, Tomo no Kuro. That girl Abiba has no values. She doesn't represent the kind of woman who will stand beside you with dignity. Chief Jumble added calmly, Furo is respectful, well-raised. She will build with you, not destroy you. Furo stood quietly in the corner, her hands clasped, heart racing. She wasn't sure how to feel grateful for the chance, ashamed of how it came, afraid of what lay ahead. Kuro turned to her, eyes flashing. You agreed to this, to get married to someone you don't even know? With a bitter laugh, Kuro stormed toward the door. I can't believe this. He slammed the door behind him. That night, Furo sat in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, unsure of what her future now held. She wasn't just in a stranger's house, she was in a stranger's story. But deep inside, she knew one thing: this would not be her ending. He drove to Abiba's house angrily and told her everything that had happened. She sighed deeply and said, I know your parents never loved me, but this is too far. She turned to him and hugged him, kissing him passionately. He exhaled a long, heavy sigh of relief. Kuro got home the next day. When Furo came to greet him with a smile, he said, Please stay in your lane. I'm letting you stay out of courtesy from my parents until they figure out where you can live. He left the house shortly after and didn't return for 2 nights. When he finally came back, his parents confronted him, expressing their disappointment over his attitude and abandoning his wife. She's a stranger. The only woman I know is Abiba. His mother shot back, I forbid Abiba that slut. Annoyed, he warned her never to call Abiba names. In response, Mrs. Tonier slapped him. Shocked and hurt, he ran out of the house, and as he approached the house, he heard laughter. Abiba's voice mixed with a man's. Curious and still tense from the fight with his parents, he walked quietly toward the window and paused. Inside, Abiba was seated close to another man, giggling, her legs draped carelessly over his. Kuro is so dumb, she said, taking a sip of wine. Imagine thinking I'll become some housewife overnight, just to please his overbearing parents. Please, I'm not cut out for village style marriage. The man laughed. So what's the plan? She shrugged. I'll milk him a bit longer, then disappear. He's obsessed, so he'll keep coming back. Kuro's blood ran cold. The woman he had been fighting for, insulting his own mother, for this was how she saw him. He turned back, numb, and drove away in silence. Kuro loved recklessly, and it broke him. Furo was in her room deep in thought when she saw noise in the sitting room. She peeped, and for the first time, she saw him broken, and she didn't think twice to help Kuro to bed. But suddenly he pulls her close, kisses her passionately. In a moment of confusion, grief, and long-suppressed feelings, the lines blurred. Kuro wakes up, sees Furo asleep next to him, blood on the sheets. But not all awakening bring peace. Kuro shouted, What have you done? You cheap harlot. Furo woke up startled, trying to explain, but he shut her up and left the house. Sheets, and as she washed them, tears streamed down her face. She couldn't hold it in any longer. What have I gotten myself into? She thought. All she ever wanted was peace, not this chaos, not this pain. From that moment, she decided to treat Kuro like he didn't exist. She stayed out of his way, focused on anything but him. Luckily for her, Mrs. Tonier had bought her a JAMB form and enrolled her in a tutorial center. That became her escape, her little pocket of hope. She buried herself in her books, determined to build a future beyond the walls of that house. Then one afternoon, during class, her vision blurred, her head spun, and just before everything went dark, she whispered to herself, Not now. She collapsed. She was rushed to the hospital. When Furo slowly opened her eyes, the first faces she saw were Mrs. Tonier and her mother sitting beside her, worry etched on their faces. She greeted them weakly. Mrs. Tonier took her hand gently. How are you feeling, my dear? You need to take things easy, her mother added, her voice soft. Then Mrs. Tonier said it. You're pregnant. Furo. The doctor confirmed it. Furo's eyes widened. Pregnant, she echoed, shocked. They both smiled and nodded. Yes, my dear. That's why you collapsed. You need rest. When they returned home from the hospital, Mrs. Tonier excused herself, giving mother and daughter space. Madame Sophia looked at Furo and held her hand. How are you really? I rushed down when I heard you collapsed. But seeing how Mrs. Tonier has taken you in like her own, I know you're in safe hands." She paused and added gently, "I'll be leaving tomorrow. I left the market in someone else's care." Furrow smiled faintly and leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "Don't worry, Mama. I'm fine." Then she looked at her closely. "But how have you been coping? How's your health?" Madame Sophia, whose body had grown frail and tired, gave a soft smile and replied, "I'm okay, my daughter. Don't worry about me